I have nowhere to put things, so pardon me. And that also means these little cards in my pocket might just not be as helpful as I had hoped. Good evening. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Angie, for your leadership and putting this event together and keeping folks fed. Keeping people fed is a passion of mine. And thank you, Heather, for that great introduction and for acknowledging electeds in the room. I'm sorry if we missed anyone. I sprung that on her as a request to help out with that. I would like to also acknowledge, I'll get there, the candidates in the room. Because as Heather said, I've been working to help a lot of other women get elected over the last 10 or so years. State Representative Marty Wilde is in the back of the room. Thank you. And it's been my pleasure to do that because I have met some incredible warrior women who are just doing some, I will say it, kick-ass work on school boards, in the state legislature, on our city councils, on our county commission. And also, I might add, since we just had the arrival of Val Hoyle, at our state labor commission. Thank you, Val. But I do want to give a nod and some props to the candidates in the room because what I'm discovering now is that it's really different to be behind the scenes, supporting women, taking those late night texts to talk them down off the proverbial ledge, to host house parties, to door knock. But when you're the candidate, you're doing all of that all the time, every day. And so I want to acknowledge, starting with our statewide candidate for Secretary of State, Jamie McLeod Skinner, also a member of that. The Eugene City Council candidate. Matt McCrae down there at the end of the bar rank for EWEB Commission. Our utility boards are really our front line in the climate change fight, so thank you, Matt, for stepping up with all of your expertise on that issue to that seat, and I hope I didn't miss anyone. Cliff Gray, another Eugene City Council candidate. But really, we're all here because it's all about me tonight. That's honestly something that is what is the most different and the most humbling and the most challenging versus helping other folks get elected is trying to get yourself elected, is you have to talk about what you've done and who you are and why you want to serve your community in this way. So, good evening. I'm Laurie Trieger. I'm a candidate for Lane County Commissioner, District 3, the South Eugene seat. Yeah. And I am a firm believer in the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things. We've lived in Eugene a little over 33 years now, and when we first came here, my husband Larry and I, we had one little tiny baby and no real plans, but really big dreams. And it was pretty rough the first few years here. We were piecing things together as best we could. We both worked a number of different jobs. I waited tables, cleaned office buildings at night while the kids were sleeping, and Larry worked during the day. The WIC program, which is a county program, a nutrition support program for young moms and kids, for moms and young kids, really helped us make ends meet. And we struggled a bit, but we had a great life because we found a community that welcomed us, and we found a lot of other young families in similar situations. And one of the most difficult and challenging and expensive things is childcare, and we helped each other by watching one another's kids and trading off and doing that. And over time, as the kids grew older and I was ready to step out and work outside of the home, I started volunteering and eventually working at Food for Lane County, which was an organization that I'm still very involved with today, serving on their board advocacy committee. Larry worked there for 19 years until his recent retirement. And I felt called by their mission and committed to ensuring none of my neighbors would go hungry. I didn't know at that time that that was going to be the start of a couple of decades-long nonprofit career. Since that time, I've worked for a number of other organizations in the community. I have a proven track record. I've worked on issues that are quite varied. My nonprofit career was absolutely grounded, but by no means limited to food security and anti-poverty work. Worked to bring the Springfield Farmers Market, which later became the Sprout Regional Food Hub, to downtown Springfield. I've worked across public and private partnerships with the Dairy Mart chain of stores to get healthier foods and mobile farm stands in the parking lots of some of their stores in more outlying communities that don't have grocers. I worked on payday loan reform work with Kitty Piercy when she was our mayor way back in the early 2000s to limit those predatory lenders from taking advantage of folks in our community. We did that work both at the city and the state level. I was really proud to head up a small public health nonprofit called ELCHE, the Lane Coalition for Healthy Active Youth. And that organization did a lot of work that is still really lasting today. We brought the first dollars to our community to start a Safe Routes to School program, which gets more kids walking and biking to school, which is important for a number of reasons. One, I will say, on the fight against climate change, we have to rethink how we do transportation, and one of the best ways to do that is by changing how people in our community in the future understand transportation and what those options are. So we are changing culture as well as policy when we do things like Safe Routes to School and get kids understanding, thinking, and being used to walking and biking to their destinations. So I'm really proud of that work. We also, I will say, one of the most proud achievements of my policy work was passing our paid sick time law here in the city of Eugene. We then leveraged that coalition and it helped us pass a statewide bill. So now no worker in Oregon doesn't have at least the bare minimum of a handful of days, 5 days a year, to care for themselves or a loved one when the inevitable happens and someone gets sick or hurt or needs to take a day off to care for their mental health as well. So I have a proven track record of fighting for working families, of ensuring people have healthy, affordable, culturally appropriate food, of having a robust transportation system and people feeling safe and supported in walking and biking in our communities. As a volunteer, I've also worked on areas that are passionately important to me, including access to reproductive health care and reproductive justice through volunteerism. And NARAL. I've been a volunteer at the Egan Warming Centers, and I have to tell you, if you have not spent time serving and talking with and sharing a meal with folks in our community who don't have a place to rest their head at night, I cannot recommend more highly that you do. It will change how you feel and what you understand about people who need that service. I've also done volunteer work in service on the county budget committee, so I understand how the county operates, how we allocate resources, and how they either align or don't align with what we say our priorities are, and that's something I'm very keen to work on as a commissioner. I currently just wrapped up a term on the Equity and Access Advisory Board at Lane County as well, and that is a citizen seated group of folks with one staff person committed to it, and that is something else I will say that I'm very excited to do at the county, which is that if we say, as a community, we care about having a robust diversity of folks living in our community, if we say equity is a value, if we say we want to be inclusive both as an employer at Lane County and to the services we're delivering to our community, then we have to put more money behind that work, we have to put more teeth behind that work, we have to put more commitment and attention behind that work, and that will start with the commissioners. We set the tone as the commissioners to set the values and the goals for our county, and we have to do that work ourselves. The most recent action that advisory board brought to the commissioners, and thank you Commissioner Buck for chairing that meeting and all the others that you do as our current chair with such grace and tact, because you were called upon for all of your grace and tact in that meeting. It's funny, but it's not funny. We were talking about passing a resolution, and the resolution did pass unanimously, condemning white nationalism in our community. I'm thrilled that it passed unanimously, but I'm saddened that we were a little bit on tenterhooks waiting to see if that would actually happen. So we have a lot of work to do, and the conversation around that table and passing that resolution indicates that a lot of that work that we have to do starts with our very own Board of Commissioners, so I can't wait to get in there and roll up my sleeves and do that hard work with my colleagues. I mentioned, I've been doing this work for a while. I've been showing up for other candidates. I am running the way I will serve as your commissioner. I will show up. I will do the work. I may not have all the answers, but I will ask all the questions. I build coalitions, I seek solutions across tables and across sectors. I'm committed to the work getting done. It's the only way. That's what inclusion begins with, as far as I'm concerned, is finding solutions that are inclusive of all kinds of sectors, people, and interests. I want to make a quick note here because several of you were here last June, 9 months ago, and when you heard I was having a kickoff, you're like, you're having another kickoff? Well, sort of. This is my campaign kickoff that I am inviting the entire community to please come along with me and help me win this race. What we did in June, I felt I really needed, and thank you, Kitty was one of our hosts for that event. It was a wonderful room full of friends and folks I knew and could count on, and it sort of launched me as a candidate. So I've been a candidate for 9 months, but now we really have a campaign. And I want to tell you, I have hit the jackpot. My campaign manager, staffing the campaign, is Laurie Musselman over here. Laurie is the one to talk to if you want to get involved, and I want you all to get involved. Door knock with me, make some phone calls, invite your friends in for a house party, and I'll come talk. Whatever you want to do, they can help you set it up. We have a phenomenal intern, Faruza Lagas, over here, just we have a mailing list of over 500 folks now, an email list that this invitation to this event went out to. We didn't have that back in June, Kitty, when you hosted the event. We didn't have an email program. We didn't have a social media presence and a website. We didn't have endorsements that I am so proud to share with you tonight so far. I've been endorsed by our local firefighters union, the United Academics at the University of Oregon, and just recently, the Teamsters. Sarah from Springfield City Council was another elected in the room, and Teamsters, and so thank you to them. So the last thing that I want to say is, people always want to know, well, what's your issue? What's the most important thing? What's that one thing? What are your first thing you're going to do when you get elected? And I really shy away from naming an issue because there's far too many of them, and they're critical issues. We are facing a climate crisis. In Eugene, in Lane County, all over Oregon, in this country, we have a housing crisis. There isn't enough of it. There aren't enough different types of it. People can't afford it, and some of it is unsafe. So we have a huge housing crisis and its companion issue of homelessness. We have far too many big ticket issues that we have to tackle, and if we can't find elected leaders who can handle tackling more than one problem at a time, then we don't have the right elected leaders. So rather than choosing an issue, what I offer to you that I will bring to the County Commission is a framework, is a lens I will look through in addressing all these many issues, large and small, and that is a public health equity lens. And what that means is we focus on prevention to keep the problems from happening in the first place. We invest in those prevention programs and initiatives. It means we start at the edges if we think of our community as a circle, and we work in toward the middle, and in that way we catch everybody up in the solutions. If we don't start at the most marginalized, least resourced communities and individuals, we will never have everyone covered. We will never have everyone having a fair shot, and we will always keep leaving people behind, and that is simply unacceptable to me. Our commitment to public health equity also helps us focus on the outcomes. How are we actually doing? Did we reduce health disparities? Is the planet healing? We have to look to those kinds of outcomes to make sure we're on the right track. So that is the focus, that is the lens that I will look through, that's the framework I will use to tackle the issues large and small in Lane County. And so in closing, what I will say to you, because people still want the simple answer, what's that one thing? The other thing they want the simple answer to is why? Why are you running? Why would you do this? And the answer to why I would do this are these two young men sitting here on this couch. Put you on this couch. So why I'm running is my grandsons, Ari and Leo. When I mentioned at the top of this talk that we moved here about 33 years ago with one little baby, that little baby grew up to become the mama to these boys. A little brother joined that little baby in our life.
The tallest man.
The tallest man in the room. We had, when we moved here in the 80s, the ability to find an affordable rental until we saved up enough to buy a home. We supported our family on nonprofit wages. Not a lot of money, but enough to meet our basic needs. It also meant we didn't have a lot of money for fancy vacations, but we didn't need that because we lived here. We lived in a vacation. We lived where the river was clean and we could swim in it in the summer. The parks were well maintained and we could play there. The hiking trails were abundant and we could do that. So I want them to have the future in this community if they choose to put their roots down here and find what we had here, which was affordable housing, living wages, and a clean environment. They deserve that. Your children and grandchildren deserve that, and that's why I'm running.